When did you learn that two wrongs don't make a right? Hours before I lost my wife, an intoxicated driver slammed into us at the red light and sent our car spinning across the intersection. My wife's head snapped forward against the dashboard. When everything stopped moving, I called her name, but she didn't answer. My shoulder was dislocated, but I could move. She couldn't. At the hospital, machines beeped while doctors surrounded her bed beside mine. Her breathing was shallow. My shoulder throbbed while I watched helplessly. One doctor came to my bedside and said quietly, "She's bleeding internally and we can't stop it. You should say your goodbyes." I gave us space. She turned her head toward me with great effort, her voice barely a whisper. "Take care of Mama. She gave up everything for us. Promise me you will." She squeezed my hand weakly. Seconds later, her vitals flatlined. 3 days after her funeral, I drove to my mother-in-law Betty's farmhouse to check on her like I'd promised. Foreclosure notices covered her kitchen table. The letter on top read, "Final notice, 30 days. Betty snatched the papers away, saying, "Don't need you nosing around my business." When I fixed her porch railing, she snapped, "Been tending this place since 4 you was even born, boy." I kept working. Betty said bitterly, "Should have seen that drunk driver coming. Should have protected my little girl." The guilt hit me, but I said nothing. I just kept hammering while she hurled insults. For 2 weeks, I visited every day. Betty slammed doors, muttered curses. My chest tightened every time I left. One day, I found her collapsed by the barn, bleeding from a work injury. At the hospital, Betty's eyes snapped open furiously. She threw her pillow at me and yelled, "You should have left me there to rot. I could have been with my baby girl." I said, "You're the last part of my wife that's alive. I'll be here even if you don't want me to." Betty's face twisted with pain. She whispered, "She was all I had left." Something broke inside my chest. I reached for her trembling hand. We both started crying, two people drowning in the same grief. I brought Betty home. A delivery man was waiting with a package from my wrecked truck. Inside was my wife's unfinished quilt with a note, "For Mama and the farmhouse that raised me. No place like home. Love, your little sunflower." Betty broke down crying. I held that quilt and made my decision. I moved into Betty's spare room and sold my old motorcycle. The money covered her medical bills and farm upgrades. Each night I cooked dinner and helped with her medications. Over the next few weeks, things got better between us. Then one morning, a car pulled into our driveway. Betty's nephew stepped out with a real estate agent and nursing home brochures. He wanted to sell the farm for a shopping center and move Betty to the city. When she refused, he filed for guardianship. That night, I found her crying in the barn. She looked defeated. I sat beside her and we talked about my wife until dawn. The next morning, something had shifted between us. At the court hearing, the nephew's lawyers painted me as an opportunist. Betty said, her voice steady despite trembling, "Your Honor, this man isn't my blood, but he's more family than blood relatives who betrayed and abandoned me." She explained how her nephew just wanted profit while dumping her in a nursing home. She looked at me and said gently, "This man stayed when everyone else left. He doesn't have to be here, but he chooses to be. Just like my daughter chose him." The judge leaned forward, clearly moved, and awarded me legal guardianship. That was 2 years ago. We improved the farm and finished my wife's quilt together, adding the final stitches she never got to make. Last week, we visited the cemetery for the first time together. Betty placed sunflowers on her daughter's grave and said, "Look, honey, we finished your quilt." Walking back to the truck, Betty stopped and looked at me. Her eyes were soft, no longer filled with anger. She patted my shoulder, saying, "Thank you, son." The word hit me like a warm wave. I nodded, too choked up to speak. We drove home in comfortable silence, two people who'd found family in the most unexpected way.